Hi, I'm Kevin Michelizzi. In this episode, I had the chance to sit down with Mary Jaron Kelly. Mary's a seasoned community advocate for the city of Portland. Her career began in landscape architecture and progressed to volunteer community leadership, and that allowed her to spend the last 20 years bringing neighborhood associations together through the city's Office of Community and Civic Life. With personal stories, a touch of humor, Mary helps us understand the importance of collaboration, mutual support, and the joy of creating positive, engaging environments. I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. Thanks. So, I wanted to have this conversation since I've had the opportunity to work with you through the neighborhood associations, and I've always loved what you've been I love what you've been doing with Civic Life, trying to bring together the different neighborhood associations. Every one of them has different levels of involvement, different focus, different priorities, and somehow you find a way to keep them all communicating and connected. What's it like doing that kind of work?
I'm really interested in what's happening in the neighborhoods and in the communities and projects and ideas that they're working on. I care. I really care. I've grown attached to people, built relationships and then friendships. And so I'm interested and maybe I'm a little nosy. I want to
I
know, oh,
love it.
what's going on over there? Or why is that person, what's happening? What isn't happening? That's a lot of it too, is what isn't happening. So I guess I really think that everybody benefits from being heard or at least someone truly listening to them, being there, being present, and having a dialogue, connecting with that person, and maybe sharing your truth and listening to what they're saying. And if they're asking for assistance, then I'll provide assistance. Not everybody does. I don't want to come out and say, I know all this and I'm going to just tell
Right.
you to do this. So I don't. A lot of what I do is giving out information, resources, technical assistance, whatever you want to call it, to people or to groups, whether they are neighborhood associations or community based organizations. And why is it that they're involved, right? Why are they doing that? Because they want to create change, right? They see something that needs maybe a different outlook or a different approach. I'm in there with them. I agree. That's something that they want to do in their neighborhood. And if it's not off the beaten track, I will provide assistance. So I share as appropriate. I believe that the organizations, even though they may be different, as you're saying, the different neighborhood associations.
Actually, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I'm assuming you've been doing this kind of work for what, more than 20 years. I'm assuming you didn't start just thinking about it in these terms. Were there challenges or were there interesting situations you came across as you were getting more comfortable in the space that kind of led you to think like this?
I think considering that I'm employed, right, and it is my role to support folks, I felt that I needed to do as much as I could, share as much as I can of the resources that I have. And then I do notice that there are groups, organizations, people that have less, right? There's more gaps, let's say, in their resources, and maybe to help them come up to speed with others, share what some neighborhoods are doing that I see could be a benefit in another neighborhood. So I really have maybe eyes out there looking around, looking at sometimes deficiencies, right?
Right.
And connecting folks who are doing like things, have similar issues. Yeah, that's really important to me. I feel like that's one of my strengths is looking for that, not weaknesses where folks might need a boost. I'm not talking personally, I'm talking like groups and neighborhood associations and how to improve how to use city resources or even other agency resources.
Yeah, because I'm assuming they're all volunteer organizations, so turnover might be pretty high.
Mhm.
The level of engagement varies neighborhood to neighborhood, so I can just imagine there is a really broad mix that
Yes.
you see.
Yes, and I'm just thinking about one of the neighborhood associations that's changing with new members. And, what I notice is what I really love is that sometimes people are joiners, sometimes they're not, sometimes they're followers, and sometimes they're leaders, right? And I would say the main theme for most people who belong to a neighborhood association is that they believe they have something to share. And those are the ones that stay, right? They
Right.
have something to share. They know they have a strength, and then they've made a connection. And I guess that's how I feel about my work too, is that I have something to share. And maybe another way of looking at things. And I met somebody last night and she said to me, I got a question for you. I know you'll answer this for me because you'll tell me the truth. You'll be honest. You'll be truthful. And I was like, "Uh-oh." That's a little bit scary, but I did my best, and I'll probably have to talk to her again because I think she wants to continue that conversation. In terms of belonging, and somehow I've made that person feel heard, and I do care. I do care. It's not just a job. And the other thing is I like to not I like, but I really think I consider community members or neighborhood association members my peers, so I'm not above them. This is not a top down situation. We're fully talking about grassroots and how a community can possibly be revitalized if that's where they're going, how to share those resources.
Right.
The other thing that's happening is that you're always learning new things. So that's exciting. There's new people that you get to meet. They have, including when I first met you, they have great different skills that I don't have. And I really enjoy connecting people with others who are in that same, let's say, interest level. And that's how I've done a lot to create some of these community engagement projects that I've worked on over the years. Yeah. And humor certainly helps, maybe making fun of myself, not being too serious, not taking yourself too seriously. And I often say that I live here too. I live in Portland too. So I get what you're saying. Somebody's really upset about something, feel that their neighborhood is not getting treated well, whatever it is. I get it because we all basically are experiencing the same challenges. And I do want to say that, I'm always amazed, Kevin, at how much people are able to give to their communities, how much time, money, their energy, their creativity. And that is humbling to me and also totally rewarding and really aspirational. Like, wow, they can do this. They're using their abilities to change their block. And they've really made this a great place. So that is, to me, just that's what keeps me going. That really does. And connecting with folks, learning more and more about them and their hopes and dreams.
So I want to ask back to what you were just saying about you live here too. Let's talk a little bit about how you got started in this
Sure,
line
sure.
because I don't think most people listening know that this is not your
Right,
background
right,
at
right.
all.
I do have a master's degree in landscape architecture, and I did work in that field for several years. I also taught classes, basically a community education kind of format for Multnomah Soil and Water Conservation District.
That's
Yeah.
quite the name.
And so I was working at this office and for them for about 18 years total. And so that was a very fun experience, similar to this, where you were meeting with people, you were teaching, you were taking them to, a site, talking about landscape design, planning, native plants, habitats. And a lot of that work or how I did that work also influenced this work, and vice versa. Just the general, how do you work with the public? How do you connect? How do you listen? How do you follow through? That kind of thing. So I feel like that work really was a benefit for me. I got started working for North Portland Neighborhood Services as a volunteer. So in my neighborhood, I saw a problem, basically criminal drug problem, and I lived in North Portland, and I just kind of started calling around in the city. I hadn't really been in Portland very long. So for assistance, police, crime, and then we started to get to know our neighbors. And so we did close down a drug house, and it had a lot more to it on our block. And that was a fascinating situation. So I got to know some people who worked in North Portland Neighborhood Services. And I just kind of said, "Do you have any little part-time jobs that, a new mom could do?" And I kind of fell into it. And then after years, well, I have worked here over 20 years, but the job changed, merged, and it is what it is now. And I haven't left. So I think it was that early experience of volunteering and getting to know other city staff, including the police officers, detectives, that kind of was enticing. And I enjoyed organizing my neighbors. We were doing surveillance. We were communicating. This is all I think it might be pre email. So that was telephone and in person contact. And anyway, so that was gratifying to be able to close that down, that drug house, and improve that block.
So when you were doing the landscape architecture, you could have easily had your business, you do the designs, and not had the public education component. So I'm assuming something in your life leading up to that kinda led you to take what you learned and want to share it. Is that a good guess
Yeah,
on my part?
yeah. You know what? I'll be honest. It was really a challenge teaching. I wasn't comfortable. Public speaking was very nerve-wracking for me as a young adult, but somehow I got past that. So, it is about speaking, and even in this office, this work, you have to, right, speak in front of groups.
Actually thinking even before that, like in your upbringing, were there role models? Was there a path that you saw? Or did the public component of what you ended up studying, did that just evolve on its own?
Yeah, I'm gonna say it evolved on its own. I think I had some good mentors. So I'm definitely, gonna say that Tom Griffin Vlade, who was the, director here, was amazing, public speaker, manager, friend, mentor. And I learned so much from him, but I also learned a lot from all the volunteers. I did a lot of volunteering with the schools where my kids went to school and helped to raise money for the school foundations for middle school and high school. And so I met a lot of great people there. And that at one point really became a part-time job, as a volunteer. So I was always kind of like, she seems so comfortable, like speaking in front of this group. I don't know if I can do it. But I think the teaching definitely, putting yourself in front of a group was really humbling, humiliating at times. And then I grew to love that. And also that connection that you have with people. And again, sharing information, giving them resources, helping them solve problems is just totally, what I do now. I will say that I think a lot of, my training and work in landscape architecture and looking at a landscape, a place, and looking around and saying, hmm, this could be so much nicer if this was, or why is this like this? So, kind of that visual ability to look at a place, whether it's, downtown Kenton or a neighborhood block in Arbor Lodge or a park, say, just always looking at things in this visual way. So, definitely for me, communicating with people, but also looking to where they live and streets and, parks and how people use a space too is really important to me. Yeah. That's something that's maybe invisible in my mind, but now that we're talking, I'm thinking about that's really important to me.
Yeah, I mean, there are actually terms for it. When you're designing an environment from a communication perspective, you want it's sociopedal, sociofugal. Like, you want an environment that either encourages communication or
Mhm.
discourages, do all chairs
Oh,
face
yeah.
the right direction, or have you set it up so that people have their private spaces? Yeah, I probably think in similar terms, but it's not on a conscious level.
Right. We've grown so used to it. Well, one thing that my former boss had said to me, as we were doing all these events here, and a lot of it is work, is, setting up and tearing down. I remember him saying, treat these folks, anybody who comes into a room, whether it's a meeting or a big gathering, or just like they're a host at your house. And that's what I do. That's what I really try to do, is to be welcoming. And it doesn't always work out. There might be some kind of distraction, but to me, that was so easy, right? Like, just come on
Right.
in, come on in. Yeah,
But I think that's more your nature.
I
You organize things in your personal life just like you do in your
do. I do.
professional.
Yes, I definitely do. You asked about my background. Growing up, my parents, and the more, I've been thinking about this, they were advocates or activists back then in the 70s,
Okay.
and they saved us piece of land that had been vacant to be used as a park. It still is a park. There's some trails on it. They also moved to another home, and oh no, there was a Superfund site nearby. Yeah.
Oh
This is
god.
New Jersey. And so they worked to fight, and it's still being cleaned up. It's being like seriously cleaned up with all the systems that they use there to remove the underground pollution. So the brownfield, that's what it was. So I watched them attend, they called it Civic Association meetings in our neighborhood, go to those meetings, speak, communicate with groups, gather, complain, just like, what can we do? Why is this not happening? So I did see that, and I wasn't a part of it, that was like for the adults, but yeah, I did see that, and I think maybe that did kind of rub off on me. Maybe that's what made me think more about getting involved and being a part of something like that.
Yeah, but I feel like you had to get to it in your own way.
Yeah, I never
Your path sounds very different than theirs.
on living on a street with a drug house, So that happened, and you had to do something about it, right? I felt like I guess I felt like I could do something about it. Maybe that's something that people need to be told or reminded. Yes, you can. You can do something. You can make that change. I like that.
You have come up with so many awesome things, so I'm gonna run down the list here, and I wanna know what I missed. You did just in terms of building community, you've talked about, needing to listen. You've gotta actually care and show them that you care. You've gotta be honest. You've gotta bring empathy. You've gotta understand their perspective. You've gotta be humble. You've gotta share what you have, and you need to continuously learn. That's what I got from what you've talked about so far. What have I missed?
Oh, a little bit of humor or a little bit of self-mockery or something. I'm not that important, right?
But I don't even know if it's the self-deprecating humor. In my experience, you make it fun. I've yet to see you approach something in like, "This has to be 100% serious at
Yeah.
all times."
Yeah.
That's one of the things I love about working with you is you make it
You.
fun.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I don't do it,
No.
you do it. No need to thank me. You're the
Well,
one
thank you
doing all
for
the
saying
work.
that. Yeah, that goes a long way. It does.
So I do wanna ask, because I know you mentioned it, you like to throw
Mhm.
parties in your
Mhm.
personal life
Mhm.
for friends, and y y if I remember correctly, you love doing themed parties. What are some of your favorite themed parties
Well,
you've
let's
done?
see. Been so many. And this might seem like, passe, but craft night, everybody brought something that they do, that they make, whether it's knitting or jewelry. I was just remembering where I had hosted a birthday party here, actually at the firehouse, and it was a bracelet making. You made your own bracelets, and that was very fun. Hula hoop making, lots of, a couple of those, what do they call them? Are they white elephant, or, everybody brings a gift and then we kind of flip the rules a little bit. I think one of the ones that was the most that people remember, and I don't think I'm going to be able to replicate it, was right around COVID. And this was an outdoor party in our backyard, and or it was COVID was nobody no, it was. We were in COVID, but somehow things had gotten safer. And so we were outside and asked people to share what had happened to them or happening or if they felt comfortable, within the past couple of years, right, of COVID. And oh my gosh, those stories were intense. What people shared, and some of
Wow.
the people there were close friends and some weren't. They all knew each other, but some, had closer ties. But I still hear people talking about that they couldn't believe. And I won't go
Wow.
into the details because they're private, but it was really, people needed to share. They needed the support. There were some tears, there were definitely a lot of laughs, but, kind of thinking about what's that next party? I hosted a 60th birthday party last year. How can we make that like a big deal? Lots of fun. Showing vacation photos on a big screen. And yeah, and some people are like, "Oh, no thanks." But, other people were so excited to come do that. And, recently we hosted a small dinner. We had 2 pairs of couples that came over, had just gone to Japan their first time. So we made a Japanese inspired meal, and that was really fun. My husband's been there many times, so he has we have grown to embrace that culture. We just thought it'd be fun to bring these 2 couples together that didn't know each other. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So there's no
Oh, I
end
love
to
it.
it, right, Kevin? There's
So
no end.
yeah. You brought up COVID. Have you noticed changes in how communities come together, or whether people feel like they belong or not since the pandemic? Because I know the pandemic was just it was it just turned
Mhm,
everything upside
mhm.
down for a
Yeah,
while, and a lot of people were feeling disconnected a little
right.
bit before the pandemic, and then lockdown hits and they feel trapped and alone. And even just doing surveys with my neighborhood, like, there are people who still feel
Mhm.
disconnected with the people who live right
Yeah,
around them.
yeah. I think about this was really when COVID started that, volunteers to create something called the North Portland Doers Group or Doers Gathering. And that was basically bringing people together who either work or volunteer or somehow were engaged with people experiencing homelessness, housing injustice, or food insecurity. And that little volunteer project grew. We were kind of, around for about 3 years. That was the life cycle of that project. And there were so many people that were connected. We had at least over the years 60 different speakers. We held these quarterly. And, the partnership within were amazing. I was connecting people who
Right.
were doing food, insecurity programs. And this was all based when it started in North Portland. So, my thought was, let's show the community what you're doing, what all you wonderful people are doing, and let's connect you. And so that's gone, and
Right.
those people are still doing that work out there. They're still engaged with those different communities, but we've kind of lost touch with them. And maybe they're on more solid ground or maybe they're not, but I know they're still there. And the beauty of it was that we had folks speak for roughly 3 to 5 minutes, share what they're doing in their organizations, and then had breakout groups. So you could actually focus, you could ask more questions about that program or project and build a network. That was the point, get more volunteers. So I feel like I wish we could still do that again. It was getting to be too much, and then as for the volunteers, and then as we moved out of COVID, it just didn't seem like it was as needed. Maybe not true,
Right.
but you could do things. You could build communities, in other topics, the environment, what have you. You could definitely do that, using that as a model. But it was so special,
Right.
and it was so, I had some meetings where people were kind of crying a little bit because they were just so amazed at how people were helping others, as I was. I was just, floored so
Right.
many times. So that was a great experience. And yeah, I think COVID, maybe it allowed us to create that, out of loss. Um, and hopefully, I will say that some of those organizations maybe are stronger because of that. Maybe they were just getting started and now and I know that's the case for some of them, are really have received a lot of funding and are doing quite well.
Right. Yeah. I love that. And I do wonder, I think you might be right in that because so much was taken away during the pandemic, that it may have just created an opportunity. Because I can almost imagine most people before the pandemic would have been like, I'm really
Yeah.
busy.
Yeah.
I can't sign up for something else."
Right. Right.
Whereas coming out of that, I think people were just
Mhm. They
craving.
were, yeah. I mean, seeing who had extra vegetables, extra produce, taking them to a church nearby that had a pantry. People needed food, and just see them
Right.
how proud they were to be able to do that. And then just the return of receiving that, you know, appreciation.
I was looking at my notes. One other thing you mentioned when we were talking before today's session is how important it is to give people credit.
Mhm.
And I've noticed, as the kids would say, low key, you've been doing that through this entire conversation. If there's a mentor, there was the
Mhm.
mentor you were very proud of, name
Mhm.
right there, give the credit, keep going. In terms of giving people credit, has that just always been a part of how you approach things? Or did that come about at some point
Mhm.
in your professional life or even
Yeah.
personal life?
I think it came about because I often didn't get credit for things, or was somehow left out. I mean, that's kind of unfortunate to have to say that, but I think that was part of it. But also then realizing the work that I do here is community driven. So it's not about me. It's if somebody wants to do this and I can't do it by myself. And so it's really about empowering folks and making that
Right,
connection. So you can't do, if you're going to have a large event or a doers gathering, couldn't do it all by myself. And I don't have the
right,
skills, right? And other people have the connections, have the knowledge. I just maybe am a little better about putting things together, organizing stuff, coordinating things, introducing people. So I realize I'm not an island, can't be an island in this kind of work or in what I was doing before or even personally. It's so much more fun to be I hate to say team player, but it's just much more fun to be working with others than kind of by yourself. Um, and I don't need the credit, you know, it's all up to
Right.
others. I'm happy to be in the background sometimes, but yeah, I am. I am.
Yeah. It's funny though, because I know people I've worked with over the years who enjoy that team
Mhm.
environment. They know they can't do it themselves, but just have never been as strong at giving the credit when it's due. They just assume everything else
Mhm,
happened,
mhm,
and I think a lot of people do. They forget
mhm,
to actually thank each
mhm,
person. It was interesting though, in that answer you were just giving, you talked about empowering people as
mhm.
well. So, well, I've lost count at how many great things you've given me here. I think we're on 10 now. How do you approach trying to empower those communities? Is it the sharing, the knowledge, or are there other
Mhm,
aspects to it?
mhm. How do I figure that out? Like, whether they want to be empowered or
Or even just how to go about it? I mean, I feel like in an ideal world, everyone's empowering everyone
right,
else.
right,
We all should be the main character in
right,
our own
right.
story
Mm,
and feel that we have the ability and the authority to do what we need to
mhm.
do for ourselves, for our community, for our organization.
I think well, you have to build some kind of trust, right? And respect. I mean, obviously, you're showing that you're respecting that person. There's some I think there's a little bit of time, a little bit of give and take where you figure that out. But if somebody
Okay.
is like asking you for help, sometimes they don't want to be empowered. They want you to do everything. And that's I'm not going to say that's disappointing or but you're still no matter what steps you're taking to help them, they're learning something, I think. They may not be going to seek out, the highest level of Portland city government, but you're giving them some names or content. I'm just using that as an example of how to do it or who these people are, who would care. So you're building that maybe knowledge base. And also part of this job, because I said it's community driven, I can't tell you how to, let's say, plant trees on your block, right? Or, oh, you need more trees. I can't tell you that. But if you say, hey, how do you know who I call about that? Or what's going on with this dead tree? Do you have any idea? I might be able to help you out. Now, that's an example. I'm using that as an example, but I do know a little bit about trees.
I'm now up to 11 items on my list from you of things you can do to help build an
Mhm.
environment where people feel they belong. I'll go back through it again. You have to listen, you have to care, you have to be honest, you have to have empathy, be humble, share what you have, learn, make it fun, give people credit, empower others to do what they need to do, and you need to build trust and
Mhm.
respect.
Yeah.
I it's such a great list, Mary.
Well, it's not bullshit. It's real. Yeah, yeah. And, I learn a lot from the volunteers, right? I'm learning so much from you. I'm learning so much from others, and so there is that sort of constant reminder of we're in this together. To me, that's really rewarding. I feel just such great joy, and I feel blessed that I've been able to do that over these years, and that'll never go away. That's, always
Right.
stay with me, always. Yeah.
I feel like that's such a great spot to end on. Is there anything that I didn't think of asking you?
I guess one thing you said when you were asking me how I got started, and I wrote here in my notes just that I got hooked on community revitalization and rebuilding after we had that, situation on our block. It was almost like, oh, this is, wow, this is fun. This is fun
Hmm.
getting to know your neighbors, solving a problem, getting to know, find out all these resources. And it was opening up my world, right? My world was I had a new baby, and I was also trying to be mama bear and protect that child, of course, on my block, but it opened up my world. And so I think that's the other thing that I get such joy from is that my world is always, it's not static. It's new people, it's new issues, and I'm hooked on that. Like
Right.
that's what I will probably continue to do throughout my life, whether it's in a volunteer mode, working somewhere, or just, in my neighborhood, just kind of doing different things. And I'm not always organizing stuff, Kevin. I do have to take a break. I
You do
do.
attend other people's events and
Yes, yes, yes. But, great joy out of that. And let's see here if there's anything else. So this probably is about it. But, in connecting with people, sometimes you're talking to strangers, right? And so maybe, over the years, maybe when I was younger, I wasn't comfortable with talking to strangers or asking questions. And there is a fine line. You can't always ask very personal questions, right? At times. But then
right.
overall, people, they want to talk about themselves, don't they? They want to share, they want to be heard. And I think we all do, like I do, right? And so I think realizing that very basic instinct that we all have, is to be connected, to belong, is really the essence of this. So whether you have a distraction, something happening on your block, I think, yes, that's something people need to deal with. But I think all in all, it's that connection with folks, that being a part of something that will keep people, as I've seen in the neighborhood association system, together, supporting each other, knowing that you're here for them, they're here for you, and we're gonna do something great. We're gonna create change. So yeah, that's
I love it.
that's yeah, that's it. That's the kernel, I think. You know.